What's going on? Let's talk about Aer's new City Pack Pro 2. I've been using it every single day for the past 3 weeks while traveling with my family in Spain, where I walked or biked pretty much everywhere since we didn't have a car, took trains, flew, and dealt with a ridiculous amount of rain. So yeah, it was a lovely experience all in all. I'll share my thoughts, specifically my favorite changes from version 1, my favorite things about the bag altogether, a few little nitpicks, and ultimately I'll share why if I was in the market today for an EDC/travel hybrid, something that's compact enough for day-to-day carry, but that I can take either as a suitcase companion day pack when I travel or as a one bag option for like a 1, maybe 2 night trip, this would probably be my leading contender right now. So let's get into it. If you look at Aer City Pack 1, I feel like it's already pretty close to being a perfect bag. If you ask 1,000 people in the bag community that have owned that bag, if they put it in their top 5 list, I guarantee you the vast majority would. Aer was very thoughtful in the changes that they introduced. I find most of the changes were positive ones. And even though there was nothing like super drastic that changed, I feel like all the little details were meaningful enough that anyone that might have a version 1 would probably have to think long and hard about whether or not they should upgrade. And anyone that doesn't have it and is trying to decide whether they should save 30 bucks and get version 1 or get version 2, I feel like that decision would be super easy. I would definitely opt for version 2. Of all the changes, my favorite ones were the new Hypalon zipper pulls. Secondly, not only the fact that they have a new stretch mesh that they're using, but they're using more stretch mesh in more places, which I love. And then just lastly, the fact that they switched to a vertically oriented luggage pass-through. As far as the zipper pulls go, like there's very little to dislike about Aer products in general, but the one component that I always had mixed feelings around was their zipper pulls. And here's why. Like, they look nice, you know, they're like plastic, but like a premium looking plastic, but they are long and just kind of jangly. They rattle, they interfere with each other quite often, especially when there's a lot of zippers going on. But my main issue with those zipper pulls is the fact that the already long plastic zipper pull was attached to the zipper head through like a little nylon cord, and that cord was also pretty long. And what that ends up doing is it just gives you less leverage when you're zipping and unzipping. So especially when you're dealing like with PU coated zippers, you want to have that zipper pull as close as possible to the zipper head just to give you that additional leverage. So for anyone that hasn't seen my videos, I'm a weirdo, very particular person. Out of all the things that I geek out on, the zipper experience to me is maybe the most important, because a really smooth, satisfying zipper experience can elevate a good bag to like great. And it could also make a bag that's really great like not great in the end of the day if that zipping experience is not very smooth. So in my experience with a Cordura version of the bag that uses standard YKK zippers in main compartment, front, and quick access pocket, not in the front and in the back, I feel like the zipping experience has gotten a lot better. From a Pilgrim churned butter smoothness rating, I would give this like an 8.8, I would say. Like this one is like, that's a 9.4, 9.5 easily. The main compartment is like smooth. It's just not like a fully one-handed thing. The only other thing that kind of like detracts it from like being a 9.0 and above is that these two zippers are like pretty much touching. And so what ends up happening oftentimes is that when these zipper pulls are close to these, I'll accidentally open the main compartment when I want to get into this one and vice versa. But from a smoothness standpoint, also like this one is super duper smooth. And I would think long and hard if you like a good zipper experience getting into an XPAC or an Ultra version, because it's never going to be as smooth as the Cordura version for that reason. In addition to the zipper pulls, another thing I really like about the new version is the stretch mesh that they're using. In the previous version, they had a stretch mesh in one of the pockets, but it just didn't feel as like thick and premium really as the new ones. Like these feel really good. They have just the right amount of stretch, but also like enough thickness where I wouldn't be too concerned about the elastic wearing out too much over time. And then in the other pocket, and kind of what you saw in a lot of the Aer products, is like not only there, but just in the main compartment, like this guy right here, they use like a ripstop nylon with an elastic band in the top just to give it a little flexibility. But for me, I just like having that stretch mesh. So they have it there, they have it in this pocket here, and then they also use it in the quick access pocket, which we're definitely going to talk about because I know a lot of people don't like the new one as much as the old one. I feel the complete opposite. I actually prefer the new one a lot more. And thirdly, just the fact that they switched to a vertically oriented luggage pass-through. So I'm biased. I feel like this is one of those things like external versus internal or no water bottle holders. Like people have very concrete preferences with those sorts of things. Like for me, I always prefer the vertically oriented luggage pass-through. And a big part of it is because I also don't pack my bag too heavy. Like when I'm traveling in the airport, like I keep it pretty minimal. I also put my laptop in the front compartment of my suitcase. If you pack your bag super heavy, yeah, I probably would want this orientation just because it sits lower on the suitcase. It gives you more stability. It's like less top heavy or vulnerable to topping over. But independently of my own preferences, I feel like with this bag being such a top-down access designed bag, right? Like your front admin panel, that is top down. The quick access pocket is top down. This is not crossbody, it's top down. It just makes a lot more sense that when this is sitting on your suitcase, same thing with the laptop compartment, everything is from the top, that you would have it. A bag like the Able Carry Daily Plus or the Max EDC or the Evergood CTB 20, 26, CPL 24, like those crossbody bags make a little bit more sense for sure, having them sit sideways. But in this case, I do feel like it makes a lot more sense for this bag. And then just in general, like when it comes to the City Pack Pro, I just love that this bag stands on its own. The first one did, but this one stands better on its own than the first one. And it's one of those check boxes that it's like, if you want that and then like a few other things you're particular about, it's really hard to get all of those things together. And I truly believe that every single everyday carry backpack should stand on its own. Like I will always opt for that. I will always sacrifice like having a slightly heavier bag if it gives me that functionality. So there's that. And then I was talking about the quick access pocket. I love that it has it, but in particular, with the new one, it's using stretch mesh instead of the old one, which was like a fleece liner. A lot of people like the old one more because it feels like a little bit more protective, which it is, and it's deeper, so it gives you more space. So if you put a lot of things in there, it's great. Me, this is like the ultimate dedicated sunglass pocket. Few bags have that functionality. And I actually prefer the fact that here it suspends like pretty close to the top of the bag, so you have less space, but it makes it a lot easier, right? When you're like throwing your sunglasses in there. With the old one, you had to kind of like stick your hand pretty deep to snag something like sunglasses, whereas here they sit right at the top. I don't care about the protection because they are like really high up in there and away from everything else. So typically I'll keep my sunglasses and AirPods like side by side so they're not like scratching up against each other, and that's it. But yeah, for someone that likes a quick access pocket that they can throw a lot of small shit in there, then yeah, the old version is going to benefit you more for sure. Now, before I give you a walkthrough of the bag, I'll share my few little nitpicks that I have. None are even close to being deal breakers, but just I guess the minuscule things that keep it from being that elusive perfect bag for me. Firstly, I feel like maybe they added too many handles. Secondly, the adjustment straps I feel like maybe are a little bit too thin. And then just lastly, the front stash pocket, which I'm still not 100% sold on. So yeah, with the grab handles, I do like that they added them. Like if I were to choose between having two or having none, I would still choose two. But I feel like the fact that they went with a vertically oriented luggage pass-through, whereas before, like having a grab handle to slide it out like was more valuable. And the fact that this new version is, I want to say it's like half a pound heavier than version 1. This is like, you know, not that this is contributing a ton to the weight, there's like a few other little things, but my main issue with having an extra grab handle beyond aesthetically, I feel like it's not a huge deal, but it's just in terms of the access to the water bottle pocket. Even though the grab handles sit pretty flush with the bag, they're still like fairly thick and they protrude out a little bit. So when you're putting your water bottle in, it just kind of gets in the way a little bit. As you can see, it kind of like angles out a little bit, but it's just more the access. Like if it didn't have it on one side, right, then I feel like you'd be able to get in and out of. It's still a better external water bottle holder than most, even with it. But I just feel like it would have been nice to have one side that's maybe more dedicated to the water bottle, and then the second one for an umbrella or just a stash pocket for gloves or smaller things that you don't really need to put inside your bag. But given the fact that this bag is half a pound heavier than the original version, that is one area that I think it could have done without, and I don't think anyone would be complaining about the fact that they only gave them one extra grab handle, because I think for most bags that is more than sufficient. My second little nitpick is with the adjustment straps. The webbing that they're using, it's really nice. I feel like because they're both thin and narrow, you just don't get as much leverage when you're trying to adjust. I get that there's a lot of people that don't really like adjust their bag straps very much. Like I am the kind of person, every time I put my bag on, I adjust it, I cinch it down to where I like it, and then when I take it off, I like loosen it. So I'm constantly like loosening and tightening. And yeah, I just feel like if these were a little bit thicker, I'd have better leverage and I'd be able to adjust it more easily. There were a few times that I was kind of like wrestling with it. So, and given the fact that their shoulder straps are already pretty chunky, I feel like it would also maybe aesthetically match it a little bit more having beefier adjustment straps. And then the last thing that is a defining feature of the Aer City Pack Pro 2 from a design language standpoint is the fact that they have this horizontal like front access pocket. I do appreciate that with the new version, they made the admin panel smaller and they made this like taller, like there's more volume in here. And there is a bit of expandability. I just feel like it can be kind of an awkward space where it's like way too spacious for smaller things, but bulkier things, sometimes they fit well, but a lot of times it's like kind of tight, especially when the main compartment is a little bit more full, and then this becomes tighter. And then the zipper, right? Like it's not that it's like super abrasive, but it's also not like, I feel like psychologically every time I put my hand in there, I know that when I take it out, it's not gonna be satisfying. It's not gonna be unpleasant either, but there's just gonna be like a little bit of just scratching happening. So if I'm putting something like thick gloves in here by themselves, they fit, right? But when there's stuff in the bag, it gets pretty tight to fit that. If you have big headphones like AirPod Maxes, they fit, which is great, but right now the bag's empty, so I can do it semi-effortlessly, and it's still a bit of a tight fit. Like it's not like in the Able Carry Max EDC, the front stash pocket, you just like throw them in there, take them out, like you don't have to think twice. But here you have to kind of like think about the angle that you're putting them in and taking them out, right? It's a little bit tight. But for smaller things like a beanie or a neck warmer, then it works well. So I do like having it, but it's the one area of the bag that I'm just not 100% like, this is like exactly how I'd want to use that space. So beyond that, let's get into the bag. So yeah, starting with the outside, they are using their very signature air defining 1680D ballistic nylon, which is super bomb proof, probably overkill for most use cases. Compared to the XPAC or the Ultra, you get the standard YKK zipper, so they're not PU coated everywhere, which is really nice. I already talked about that. I feel like aesthetically, the Cordura might be the most versatile one in the sense that you can take it into a professional setting, like into work or like business meeting, things like that. And it fits in, I think, a little bit more than the Ultra or the XPAC that I feel like err a little bit more on the technical looking side, but I mean, they're all good looking bags. This is the one that's probably gonna last you the longest because you don't have to worry about like delamination or anything like that. But it is the least waterproof of the three. I would say if you're trying to decide between this XPAC or Ultra, I mean, if you live somewhere where it rains a lot and you're gonna be using it to commute, I would definitely go with either XPAC or Ultra, just because you get that additional peace of mind from the waterproofing. in between XPAC and Ultra, I'd probably go Ultra just because I feel like XPAC is in like most bags these days have an XPAC version. Ultra is not as easy to come by. And XPAC, I also love XPAC by the way, but it just, if you scuff it up against a wall, like just rub against a wall very gently, like it's gonna get scuffed. It can get de-scuffed and cleaned super easily, but I feel like the Ultra just, you don't have to deal with that as much, and they're both super light, super strong, and super waterproof. Now, when I was in Granada in Spain, it literally rained for like nonstop. It was like historically, I think the most rain they've had in the last 100 years. It was almost 3 weeks of just non-stop rain. So yeah, the bag got wet in many, many occasions, but there was one point where I'm like, let me just like test how waterproof it is. I was walking around, like walking back to the home that we were staying in. It was like a 15-minute walk or so, and it was, if a 10 is a torrential downpour and a 1 is just very light drizzle, I want to say it was like a 6, like a perpetual 6. We got home, you know, it had been raining, and then I just left the bag outside to get rained on for another 30 minutes. It was like 45 minutes of nonstop rain. And yes, a little bit of water like seeped in, like in the front compartment, in the top part here. It didn't make it further down than that. The top quick access pocket still was dry. And then the laptop compartment, which is really the most important one, I had papers in there just to see like if it would, like the papers were completely dry. So I feel like most people aren't gonna sit in the rain for that long if they can help it, like unless you're going on a hike, but this is not a bag that you're gonna take with you on a hike. So I feel like even in that circumstance, the ballistic nylon did really, really well. And then, you know, I just like left it open for an hour or two, and then it just like dried back. The fact that you get non-PU coated zippers, sacrificing a little waterproofing, I think Cordura is just a really, really good option in that sense. You got their front access pocket that I already talked about. You have their key leash here, which previously it was like in the side pocket. The only thing is I feel like the fact that this leash is not elastic at all, it's pretty short. So I was using keys a lot more than I do in my day-to-day life because we had bikes and we had the bike locks on there. The house that we were staying in, there were like 2 different keys to get in, like one for the gate, one for the actual house. So for people that are using keys very regularly, like this was not long enough to comfortably like open a door. You'd have to like take the key out and put it back. So at that point, it's like, I almost like, why am I gonna use it if I just have to do that extra step every single time, other than of course, like having the security of having them there. But for that, I'd probably put the keys somewhere else. Here you have their front admin panel that's a little shorter. It now uses this really, really nice stretch mesh. You have one pocket that's shorter on one side and one that's longer. So I just keep like my charger cube on one side, and then this is like a mobile battery bank on the other. Those are like the main essentials that I like to keep in there. And then you have a zippered pocket that's more secure here. This is where I keep the cable so that it's not like as cluttered. Also a good place for passports and things like that. Up here you have their dedicated sunglass pouch, which like I said is now using stretch mesh rather than a micro fleece liner, but it's suspended and elevated away from the bag, so it's not like this droopy pouch that like eats into the main compartment space, and it's really easy to get in and out of. Standard sunglasses fit super easily in here, right? But like the really thick sunglasses, like the sportier ones, also fit, which is great. It's not too shallow. Great place for AirPods, small things like that. But again, if you're someone that likes to have a quick access pocket that you can throw a bunch of stuff, the old version was better because it was more spacious, had more padding. But I don't like when things get cluttered, especially a lot of small things where I have to like rummage through for what I'm looking for. I'd rather just be like, bam, this is gonna be my sunglass spot. One other noteworthy change from version 1 is the fact that the grab handle on the top used to be more in the middle of the bag. Now it's in the back, it's also like more padded, which is really nice. The reason why I love this is because it still has the same functionality that's like super easy to grab, but it's not in the way of the other zippers. But there's times where I'll be like at an airport or a train station and I go into a bathroom and I want to hang it rather than putting it on the floor. And those hooks are usually like pretty small. When it was here in the middle, you couldn't hook it. Whereas here, it makes it a lot easier to hook. And then you've got the two external water bottle holders. They're gusseted. They have this nice elastic band on here just to give you a little expandability. Compared to version 1, you only had one external water bottle holder and then you had like a smaller pocket on the other. I think all in all, I prefer an external water bottle holder, like an additional one that I can use just to stash bulkier things. But one of the changes that I'm sure a lot of people will appreciate, people that carry like an umbrella, things like that. For me personally, as long as I have one on the other side, it's not like a huge deal. In terms of what fits in here, this is 24-ounce Awala, which fits well, like really well, but beyond that, maybe like a 26 or a 28 would fit, but a 32-ounce, this is a Yeti, yeah, it's super tight. You can make it work. Maybe over time it'll just be easier to get that in and out of, but it's just tight enough, and I'd be worried about like how much that would impact the elastic on that band there. So if you need a 32 or 40 ounce to fit in here comfortably, you might be pushing it kind of hard. And like I mentioned, the fact that they have these grab handles, they slightly just get in the way. It's not like a huge deal, very little, but if they only had one on one side, I think it'd just be that much easier to get in and out of with the water bottle. And then lastly, the back of the bag. The shoulder straps on version 1 were comfortable, like pretty comfortable. And I feel like on version 2, they are pretty supremely comfortable. Again, I was walking around everywhere with this bag and it was very comfortable. Like a lot of it comes from the thickness of these straps, the spacing that they have here, also the fact that they kind of like wrap around, contour around your shoulders and your torso. They have their classic like slider for the sternum strap, which I really like because it makes it really easy for you to adjust it. When your bag is super full, or if you're wearing a jacket, you know, something thicker, you might want to adjust the sternum strap, and a lot of the bags have it where you have to like unclip it or just like do something that you're probably not going to end up doing. Here, just it's really easy to do it on the fly. And then you have magnetic buckle here, which is great. Like I know some people don't love the magnetic buckle. Overall, I prefer it over just the standard one. The only thing is there are times where like you'll just have the bag and you like put it down and then it'll magnetize on its own. So then when you lift it up and you go to put it on, you're like, oh, I gotta take it off. But all in all, I prefer magnetic buckles over non. And they've got nice elastic strap keepers just to keep things tidy. But like I said in one of my nitpicks, these adjustment straps are just a little bit on the thin side for me. I would like something a little bit thicker and wider so that I can just adjust the straps more easily. Just lastly, the luggage pass-through, they did something interesting, which I actually had not seen before, where they have a Velcro strap here. And it's kind of cool, I will say. And even though Velcro is like something that I'm a little weary of just long term, and maybe like using a magnet, even though that would make it heavier, would have been a slightly more exciting way of accomplishing this. But what I really like about it is that most luggage pass-throughs, they make them so that they're flush enough with the bag. Like you never have a luggage pass-through, right, that just sits like this. But when I put it on the suitcase, it goes in a lot more easily, where a lot of bags, they're like pretty tight and you just have to MacGyver it in there. And then you've got the dedicated laptop compartment here, which really nicely padded. You have technically a sleeve in the back. That's like the main one you're gonna be using for your laptop, and you have a super generous false bottom. My finger is right here, so you have a ton of protection. Beyond that, you have a sleeve across from it that is also, there's no like padding at the bottom, but it's suspended as well, so it's not gonna hit the floor. That's where I keep my iPad, which is perfect. Or also if you have a folder where you keep like documents and stuff, like perfect place for it. And then in the middle, you have like a pretty spacious sleeve that doesn't have any false bottom, like it'll touch the bottom here. But if you're the kind of person that travels with like a work and a personal laptop, you can very easily do that. The one thing I'll say about the laptop compartment is that this sleeve in the middle, which is really almost just like a cavity in between these two sleeves, It's like pretty spacious. So yes, if you carry a second laptop, that will be valuable. But for most people that don't carry 2 laptops, I feel like this is a lot of what ends up being unused space that I would have rather this laptop compartment be a little slimmer and just have that space in the main compartment. Because I'll show you now, the main compartment is like definitely spacious, feels less spacious than version 1. Still works as a 1-bagger, but maybe for like one night to 2 nights for like a pretty minimal packer. So yeah, clamshell opening. You've got these 2 pockets here, which I love. This top one has stretch mesh and the bottom one just uses a ripstop liner. The top pocket, I was using it a lot for passports when I was traveling internationally. It fits really, really comfortably. Great place for cables, things like that. Same thing, just it's nice having this bottom one for things where you're like, I don't really need to like access this very often, but it's something I want to have in my bag, which is great as well. And then that stretch mesh I was telling you about, this is a lot nicer than the old one. Another place for you to put documents or just like put, you know, like a beanie and just like have it segmented from everything else. One cool thing about this bag is that it is spacious enough for like 1-bagging it, right? Like this is a Peak Design medium cube with like 2 nights worth of clothing, and it fits really comfortably in here. You're not gonna have a lot of space for really anything else. But with that being said, the bag is also like slim enough that even for like more petite people, it doesn't feel huge. You'll notice like throughout the bag, they added like Hypalon pull tabs, bottom, top, just to make it easier as well as you're like zipping the bag. So final thoughts, I alluded to this earlier on in the video, but this bag checks off so many boxes, checks them off really well. It looks great, it's super premium, it stands on its own, it's really comfortable, and it's a really good size, right? It's compact enough for a day-to-day carry. It's spacious enough to like 1-bag it. So it's a super versatile bag. One thing that gave me an additional layer of appreciation for this bag is when we went to Spain, I didn't have this bag. We took the Able Carry Daily Plus and the Max EDC. We wanted something a little bigger for the kids, their toys, snacks, all that good stuff. And for when I did like sports out there, I played a lot of paddle. That was the bag I used for that. And then we had the Daily Plus, which was smaller, like for the plane, tech essentials, and also like a day bag where we didn't need to carry a lot of layers and stuff like that. Aer reached out to me like early on while I was in Spain, seeing if I wanted to test it. Of course, I said yes. And then when I had it there, you know, I thought, yeah, like it's gonna be great, but I don't think it's gonna replace those bags. And now it's like I am in quite a pickle in the sense that the Daily Plus, there are times where you want a little extra space where the Max EDC comes into play. But there are times where the Max EDC, you really don't need that extra space and it just feels too bulky for a lot of situations. And then the City Pack Pro 2 is compact enough that it's actually, even though it has more volume than the Daily Plus, for example, it feels a little smaller on your body just because of the proportions. It's not as slim, but it's also not like too thick. But it's shorter and a little narrower, which is really nice. But it has like additional space, not as much as the Max EDC, especially not in the front stash pocket, but more space than I would typically need for most things. So, and it stands, which those 2 bags don't stand as naturally. But yeah, in a world where the Daily Plus serves a very specific purpose and the Max EDC serves a very specific purpose, I feel like this is the perfect in-between bag that doesn't compromise much to give you what you would need out of a Daily Plus and a Max EDC. It's also incredibly comfortable, slightly less comfortable than the Able Carry, but also very comfortable. But yeah, ultimately, if you don't have version 1 and you're trying to decide between version 1 and version 2 of this bag, I think version 2 for sure. The zipper pulls, the stretch mesh, the vertical luggage pass-through, the extra water bottle holder. It is a little bit heavier, but it is also more comfortable, stands better on its own. It pretty much wins in every aspect, and I think that it looks a lot better with the rounded edges. It's not like super round, but just doesn't have as much of an aggressive look as the version 1. I really like this bag. I'm still very curious about the XPAC and the Ultra in terms of the zipper smoothness. So yeah, maybe I'll get my hands on one of those and do a comparison. But if you're trying to stay within a cost-effective price point, you don't live in a place where it rains a lot, I think the Cordura 1680D ballistic option is great. You get the smoother zippers, and it's still weather resistant for most situations you could possibly imagine. But yeah, other than that, best of luck. Cheers.